After a long day at work, Joseph finished up his shift at the local Aldi and headed out to his car. But when he got outside, he noticed something odd. There was a shiny new Mercedes 280 parked right next to his spot. He thought it was strange because the lot was nearly empty. It was also strange that such an expensive car was parked in the employee section, but he didn't think much of it. So he simply got into his car and started to drive home. Meanwhile, a dark blue Mercedes 300 SEL was slowly following Joe without him noticing. What Joe didn't know was that the Mercedes he saw in the parking lot was a near-perfect replica of his boss's car. His boss Theo Albrecht, one of the richest men in Europe, had been kidnapped by terrorists a few minutes earlier. They were now holding him at gunpoint in the trunk of his car just a few meters away from where he had parked in the Aldi parking lot. If you've ever wondered why Aldi has so few products and why they're always sold out, this is the reason. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to look at the bizarre kidnapping of Aldi's CEO, and find out how the grocery chain has become one of the fastest growing retailers in the world. In 1946, two brothers named Karl and Theo Albrecht took over their mother's small grocery store in Essen, Germany. Together they grew the shop into one of the most successful retail chains in history. Their strategy was simple. Instead of trying to sell thousands of products like other grocery stores, they would focus on only selling a couple hundred that were guaranteed to sell well. This meant that they could buy the products in bulk, negotiate lower prices, and increase their profit margins. But that wasn't the only thing that set them apart. Aldi stores are notoriously difficult to shop in. Most of the products are crammed into huge plastic bins and boxes with very little room between them. The store design was originally intended to encourage shoppers to quickly grab what they needed and get out. But over the years, they've actually had to start hiring security guards to prevent shoplifting. The brothers called their formula discount supermarkets, and in 1960 they opened the first Aldi store in what would become one of the biggest retail experiments in history. Within a decade, they had expanded all throughout Germany and eventually into the Netherlands. But even though the business was wildly successful, there was still one problem. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, both brothers became increasingly paranoid about people trying to steal their idea. At one point they even hired a private investigator to follow their employees and make sure they were unvisiting competitors. But no one worried them more than their own employees. The brothers never trusted anyone else as much as they trusted themselves, so they refused to delegate authority or hire managers. To this day, all Aldi employees are considered equal and can be replaced at any time without explanation. As the years went by, the brothers became so powerful that German tabloids began referring to them as the secret millionaires. Despite working 15-hour days, neither brother ever took a vacation. They worked 7 days a week until they were well into their 80s. As they grew older, their only concern became protecting their fortune. So they put almost all of their money into an investment company called Albrecht Discounts, which owned all of the Aldi stores throughout Europe. They then used some of that money to buy shares in dozens of chemical, pharmaceutical, and oil companies, which brought in millions of euros every year. By 2001, the brothers were worth an estimated 13 billion euros, making them the richest men in Germany. They continued to grow the business until they passed away in 2014 and 2018. But even though the brothers are gone, their spirit lives on through Aldi today. If you visit an Aldi store, you'll notice that everything is still laid out exactly the same way. You'll still have to search around to find what you want. But that's because Aldi doesn't believe in giving customers too many options. Customers don't care about the environment. If they can't see a product, they won't buy it. This is why Aldi uses huge displays to cram as many products into their stores as possible. But it's also why they keep their stores incredibly small. Today, the average Aldi store is only 1,200 square meters, which is about a quarter of the size of a Walmart. It might seem counterintuitive, but this is one of the reasons why Aldi can sell their products for so cheap. They don't have to spend money on huge buildings or pay rent for massive parking lots. All Aldi needs is enough space to hold a couple thousand products and a loading dock to receive shipment. That means that their overhead costs are extremely low, allowing them to pass those savings on to their customers. And although the brothers are no longer alive to see it, Aldi has become a worldwide phenomenon. In 2018, they opened their first store in the United States, and since then they've grown to over 2,200 locations. They've also expanded to over 50 countries throughout Asia and Africa, bringing in over $130 billion per year. But not everyone is happy about Aldi's success. Throughout Aldi's history, they've constantly battled lawsuits from competing grocery chains who accuse them of unfair business practices. But no lawsuit comes close to the disaster that befell the Albrecht family in 2007. On February, Thiago Albrecht was driving home from a trip to the mall when 4 armed kidnappers intercepted his car. One of them, dressed as a police officer, flashed his badge and signaled for Mr. Albrecht to pull over. Thinking that it was a routine traffic stop, Mr. Albrecht did as he was told. But as soon as his car came to a halt, the kidnappers jumped out and forced him at gunpoint into the back seat of a waiting van. Mr. Albrecht's driver was shot in the leg, but he was able to speed away from the scene and alert the authorities. Within seconds, the van carrying Mr. Albrecht turned onto the highway and disappeared from sight. For the next several hours, German authorities were completely lost. They didn't know where the kidnappers were taking Mr. Albrecht, or what they wanted. The only clue they had was a single fingerprint left behind in the getaway car. It was later revealed that the kidnappers were members of a radical left terrorist group known as the Revolutionary Cells United. They had been planning this kidnapping for months, and had even followed Mr. Albrecht on several occasions before deciding that he was worth targeting. Their goal was to kidnap the richest man in Germany and demand a ransom of 32 million euros. But what they didn't know was that Mr. Albrecht was one of the most cautious men in Germany. Before getting into his car, Mr. Albrecht had discreetly recorded the license plate number of the Mercedes that was parked across from him. He also happened to be driving the same exact car, which was registered under a fake name. All this information was relayed back to headquarters, where an elite team of investigators began tracking down the license plate number. Meanwhile, Theo Albrecht's kidnappers drove him all throughout Germany, switching cars several times along the way. After several hours, they finally stopped at a house in Hamburg where they stripped him of his clothing and bound him with duct tape. Over the next several days, the kidnappers moved him around to several different safe houses, while they negotiated with his family. But all the while, Mr. Albrecht was adamant that his family should not pay the ransom. Finally, after 12 days in captivity, the kidnappers decided to flee to a farm in Schleswig-Holstein. But shortly after arriving, the police surrounded the building and arrested all 11 of the kidnappers. None of them had realized that the car they hijacked was actually a decoy and that Mr. Albrecht had slipped a real car into a secure location after the attack. He was then picked up by his security team and returned home. Although the kidnapping attempt was thwarted, it was one of the largest and most expensive investigations in German history. It cost taxpayers over 10 million euros and resulted in 40 arrests. Several of the kidnappers were convicted of aggravated kidnapping and sentenced to several years in prison. But the ringleaders managed to escape and are still at large to this day. Despite the traumatic experience, Theo Albrecht remained defiant. He refused to let the terrorist attack disrupt his daily routine and continued to work 15-hour days at Aldi. In 2018, he passed away at the age of 88, leaving behind a $22 billion fortune. Click here to watch this video on the rise of Amazon, or click here to watch this video. As always, thanks for watching.